Hey everyone, it's Brad and Josh here, and we welcome you to We'll Bring the Popcorn, the ultimate film and TV podcast.
On today's episode, we're going to be reviewing the new sci-fi dark comedy film, Bugonia.
Bugonia is the latest collaboration between Yorgos Lanthimos, you've got Jesse Plemons, Emma Stone, all of those back, and it's, if you know his films, it can be a little weird and strange. He's got a ton of commentary and a lot of things that he's trying to say in different ways, and this one's no different. It's about two guys who are conspiracy theorists, thinks that the CEO of this company, played by Emma Stone, is an alien, and that they are planning to kidnap her and make her deliver a message to her people to get the aliens to leave the planet. And yeah, it's a little wacky and strange, but it really is. Like, if you've watched anything of his, you know just how weird and odd it can be. Like, it can have almost horror elements to it. Then it's got sci-fi, but then it's got comedy and dark comedy, and it's got just this weird combination of a whole lot of different things, and even some really over-the-top, heavy music that sometimes fit, other times fit out of place. But you know, with Yorgos, that most of the stuff has a meaning behind it that you may not initially see or understand. But I've mentioned it before, I'm not the biggest fan of his films. Like, sometimes he goes a little too far with the messages and things that he's trying to do into a really dark, disturbing place. But I enjoyed this one. I think Jesse Plemons was the highlight of it. Emma Stone is fantastic as always, but most of the heavy lifting in this was done by Jesse, and he was really fantastic, giving a very layered performance of this guy who's just really down on his luck. You know, stuff has happened to his mom that has caused him to be kind of how he is, and he's heavy into all these conspiracies, but you can see the torture and the pain and a lot of stuff that's going on in him. And I think he was a real highlight of this film.
Yeah, for sure. He's a phenomenal actor to begin with. He's great in just about everything he's in. He's a phenomenal actor, and I would agree. He does a ton of heavy lifting in this movie. He's, like you said, he's that tortured soul who is also very confident in knowing that what he believes is the truth. So that's kind of like his base for his character, is this guy who's gone through these horrible things. He's, living in a kind of a rundown type of house, works a menial job that, doesn't pay him a lot of money, but at the same time, he's kind of taken it upon himself to, he thinks of himself as the only person who understands what's really going on in the world, and he says he's done all these studies on different human beings, and he knows like what type of aliens these are specifically, and how to tell what class of alien they basically are based upon different features and things that they have. And he believes that Emma Stone's character, who is Michelle Fuller, who happens to be the CEO of the pharmaceutical company that is kind of prevalent in this film, he believes she is the perfect candidate to reach out to, her alien overlords.
Is it the Andromedans, he calls them?
Yeah, they are Andromedans, and he thinks that she's the one that can communicate back to them to negotiate their peaceful leaving of planet Earth, to give the Earth back to the humans. And he feels like the aliens are this race that has come and infiltrated all of society and have, held down the human race and makes it so hard for everyone. You could see where we're going if you can kind of infer the political commentary that's kind of being interwoven here with, people that are of high standard having so much and everyone having so little. It's a very heavy message in this film. But yeah, man, Jesse is phenomenal in this movie. Like you said, he's this tortured guy who just knows he's the smartest guy in the room. He knows who the real aliens are, and he's targeted Emma Stone as the alien who he knows can communicate back to the mothership. And he's got his cousin Don, helping him out in this endeavor, who Don is obviously clearly, autistic and dealing with, has Down syndrome for sure, and is kind of his sidekick along for this journey that he feels he has to protect, but also needs his help to get done what he needs to get done to get, Emma and capture her and do what he's got to do in this film. And it's just, I'm kind of in the same boat you are, man. When you see these films like Past Lives is another one that he was probably most famous for recently that had Oscar buzz and everything like that. He's constantly collaborating with Emma Stone here and Jesse Plemons, and if you've seen those types of films, you know what kind of genre of film you're kind of getting. This weird, artsy, a lot of subtle messagery and everything like that. And you get that in heavy doses in this film too. Like it's not short on that at all.
Yeah, so you mentioned you get some political stuff. You get a ton of commentary about conspiracy theories and all the stuff that people are believing between pharmaceuticals and politics and chemtrails and chemicals and all that. But it also deals like, which is a kind of a really weird side story to it with the police officer that used to be a babysitter to Teddy, but they don't come out right and say what happened there, but especially towards the middle end of the film, there's a lot of implications of exactly kind of what happened there, and you get another just real dark element, which it helps you set up just really why Teddy is kind of the guy and where he's at, but it felt a little kind of strange and out of place that It kind of went there with all the other commentary and all the other things that are going on with it. But yeah, you get eventually, it starts off kind of the planning and you get to see, and then they go after, Emma Stone's character. They go after Michelle to capture her at her home. They hide in the bushes wearing, I didn't even see who the person was that they were wearing the cardboard masks of, but they, try to surprise her. She fights back, but they're able to capture her. And she really did shave her head. They shaved her head in the back of the vehicle there. So she, went bald for the film. And, most of her part of the film takes place in the basement of Teddy's home where she's been held captive. And they're trying to get her to admit that she's an alien. But of course, she's outright denying it and, refusing to do anything they say. And then you get some humorous bits where she's given a tape recorder and he comes down to listen to her messages. So yeah, I'm an alien. So yeah, these are my friend. Like just clearly just didn't have anything to say or didn't want to say anything. And he gets mad, but it's really interesting to see the way that Teddy's character was kind of unraveled and layered, where you see everything, even the weird flashbacks involving his mom and stuff, which kind of went way out there with the artistic look and presentation of him. Yeah. It did help you kind of unravel, like Teddy's a severely disturbed individual. Yeah. And so you're trying to unravel what's true and what's real and what's not. And like I said, there's almost horror-like elements at some points to it. You get music that just comes in so loud and crashing. It almost sounds like it's out of a Halloween Michael Myers film than being what this was, because it felt almost really out of place, but I think it was supposed to kind of take you and make you feel a little disturbed by it. But yeah, it's one of these, I think with Yorgos, you either love it or you hate the films because they are so artistic, but also his messages can be all over the place and be heavily layered, and there's a lot of layers and a lot of stuff to this. And like I said, Emma Stone did great as Michelle, but she had so much kind of less to do, especially with dramatic or a full performance. And Jesse Plemons said he just kind of stole the whole movie because he was the main subject of the movie, and he did such an amazing job of giving you even just looking in the eyes of someone and seeing that kind of tortured when she's trying to explain stuff to him, and you can see that his mind is going, but he's not connecting. Like, no, I'm right, you're wrong, I know this, I'm waiting till you finish and I'm going to go off on you type of thing. Like you could see all that in his face without him saying a word.
Yeah, and he does such a good job of emoting that. And it's a really, really phenomenal performance from him. Wouldn't be surprised if he got some award buzz later on this year, but that's, like we've said with several other films, it's such a tight, crowded space this year with some really good performances. We'll see if he sneaks in there or not, but yeah, man, this goes in a really like heavy artistic direction in a lot of cases, like you said, and it's just one of those movies, like you said, you're either going to love it or you're going to hate it, I think is kind of the two. I don't think there's a real lot of middle ground. I think if you pay enough attention, you could pick up on a lot of the subtle things that Yorgos implements in this film, but it's just all about Teddy knowing that in his mind that Emma is an alien, and it's all about him just trying to break her to the point where she admits it and she helps him, and like he's willing to do whatever it takes. I want to take it back a little bit to the beginning of the film, which probably made me laugh the hardest, and I don't know why, but you see Michelle going through like her day-to-day routine. She goes to work. She's, a CEO of a pharmaceutical company, so she's obviously financially very well off. She makes a ton of money. You see her with the private, like, MMA training that she's doing, like self-defense training, like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and all this other stuff that she's doing, like MMA style training where she's teaching herself how to defend herself and fight, and looks pretty good doing it. Like, she looked like she legitimately went through the training, and I'm sure she did, but it leads to the point where you've got these two guys, and Teddy and Don, who are trying to abduct her, and she kicks the crap out of both of them. And it was just so funny to watch these guys try to abduct her, and you see her MMA training kicks in, and she just starts kicking the crap out of them before they eventually subdue her, because she runs off, and you'll see how he got her to, get it to the point where they could abduct her. But it was just so funny watching those two just clearly didn't know anything about her, really thought she was like, oh, it's this woman, we'll catch her defenseless and we'll take her and it'll be easy. And then she just turns the tables on him and really just starts kicking the crap out of it. It was so funny. It made me laugh when we watched it, but it was just a really, really funny scene that it was fun to watch. It made me laugh. It was one of my favorite parts of the movie.
And there's a ton of commentary with Michelle, with Emma Stone's character, because she is that kind of atypical CEO who kind of just cares about the money, but thinks that all their ideas are like this golden thing, that they're being so good to the people and everything else. Because she's like, yeah, effective immediately, we're changing time to 5:30, and you can leave at 5:30 if you want. And then, I mean, if you still have work to do, of course you can stay and you can work and you work. But if it's 5:30, you can go home if you want. Right. And it just kind of goes through that sequence of like, hey, you can go home if you want. I mean, you could stay, but you can go home if you want. And like, it kind of just hammered that down. Like, she's so indecisive, but she's trying to make it feel like she's being this really giving, personable boss. But she's saying that you can leave, but she doesn't really want you to leave. She wants you to stay and work. And even, it carries all the way through the movie, because you can get towards the end of the movie and you get stuff where it's brought up again where, oh, you could leave and you could do this and you could do that. And it's just like, that made me laugh, because I think everyone's dealt with CEOs or people who've been like that, or who are trying the hardest to feel like they're connected to the people that work for them, but they're completely missing the point. But it's also that double speak, like, oh yeah, you can go home, but if you have some work to do, you should stay and get it done. Right. Like, okay, so then I can't go home early ever.
Right. Yeah, I just might as well, just sell my house and live here. We've all kind of felt that way about our work at one point or another. But yeah, it was, that made me laugh too, because I was just like, that one hit a little close to home, I think, because we've all experienced those things like that. And yeah, I'll leave it at that. But it takes this weird turn where you're trying to figure out in this entire movie, like, is Teddy really crazy? Is there no such thing as aliens? Is she really not an alien? Because she's very convincing in this entire movie. She's like, this guy is off his freaking mind. Like, she's trying to get through to Don, who unfortunately is super loyal to Teddy in this endeavor, but you could see he still has a bit of a moral compass where he doesn't want to do the wrong thing, but he can't betray Teddy, because Teddy's the one really that's always looked out for him, and he's always, done that, and he's very loyal to Teddy.
Like the only family he has left.
Yeah, it's a really sad story with Don, and we have to really just kind of peel the layers back here and go full spoilers.
I felt really bad for Don in this.
Yeah,
film.
I felt awful for Don and what happens to Don in this film, but like, yeah, you get throughout this whole film the through line of Teddy's just willing to do almost whatever it takes to really break Michelle's spirit and have her finally admit, like, hey, you're right, I am an alien, and this is, I'm the one that can get in touch with the people. And then you find out who Michelle really is by the end of this film, and that kind of plays out in the wacky last 20-ish minutes of the film that really just takes, like, you think you're going in this lane straight down the road and it's going to go a certain way, and then it hits the off-ramp and you're going a completely different direction than anything I thought was happening in this final 20 minutes of the film, which was just insane, for lack of a better word. It takes a hard pivot. It becomes like almost a completely different film in like the last 20 minutes.
That was a really odd, strange ending. Like, it's somewhat fit and worked with what you're going for, but it was just so out there that it just felt like it almost took me out because most of the film, like you're really almost feeling sympathetic for Michelle, as you're kind of supposed to, even though she's kind of that typical CEO. But you're also feeling bad for Teddy because you're learning more stuff about his mom and what has happened to her and what's happened to Teddy in his life. And you get like, oh yeah, he's just this cuckoo crazy guy who just believes every conspiracy that has ever been said and made, and he's just spewing the typical stuff out, covering windows with aluminum foil and making sure there's barriers so they can. And he truly believes that he's going to, if he captures one alien, he's going to be able to negotiate with an entire alien race to force him to leave planet Earth. Like, he really believes that he has that much like power and control, that if aliens are real, well, he on behalf of Earth is going to negotiate everything for him. And you get all these kind of psychotic breaks and other things that happen with him that you do feel sorry for him, but you're like, how is this going to end for him? And that ending was just so just wild and crazy. Like, it took me out of the film a little bit because it went a little almost too slapsticky with some of the ending there, that it just felt like so weird and odd and just bonkers that you were kind of had almost the whole movie, you were almost doing Signs, and then you went to Scary Movie. That's kind of how it felt. Like, it was that kind of big of a just kind of change at the end there, and like you had some shocking moments happen, and then it just went off the rails.
It almost felt like it started out as this like dark drama kind of, conspiracy theory type film, and you think it's, like you said, this is the lane of the film that it's going in, and then it almost becomes, like you said, like a sci-fi comedy action movie, like horror film, like multiple elements like thrown into the mix here. It gets gruesomely violent and almost like torturous in some senses. Like, there's an actual like kind of torturous type scene like that goes through in this film, and it just takes this hard pivot to almost a completely different film towards like the break. Once you hit that apex of the film and you hit that breaking point where you're getting to the conclusion of the movie, that it veers off in this other direction and it becomes almost something completely different. And I agree, it does kind of go off the rails there because it turns into something that you weren't really expecting. Like you said, you deal with this whole terrible story with Teddy and his background and what's happening with his mom and why he's targeting Michelle specifically, even because she has that tie to, the care that her company was helping provide for his mother that wasn't really working. And there was like this medical mishap that has left her comatose, which shout out to Alicia Silverstone, who plays Teddy's mom in this film. She has a little bit of a brief appearance in this movie for just a little bit, but it's always great to see her in films too. Everybody obviously remembers her from Clueless, and she's had a couple films here recently that she's been a part of, which great to see her back in acting again. But it really dives into Teddy as a character who gets probably the most fleshed out story of everybody here, because you see everything he's gone through and his attachment to his mom and his issues and the dark story with him and the police officer who just randomly helps himself into his home at one point in this movie.
Really forceful, like so strange.
Yeah, it was just some of the character choices they make in this film are really weird, with some of the ancillary characters like Casey, who the police officer, who just can't help but get involved in his business now that they've had a run-in. Like, there's a point where he's just riding a bike down the street to go to work, and he passes him in his vehicle, and he does like this hard turnaround to kind of pull him over to talk to him. It's just really odd and weird character choices, and just there's certain things about it like that I could nitpick about the film, and I still enjoyed the overall tone of the film, but it's just, this definitely is one that is not for everybody, because it's if you like a good linear story, it does that for the most part until it gets really weird and goes off the rails. But I don't know, like, this is definitely one that it's definitely a certain style, and if you're into his types of films, if you love films like Past Lives, I think you'll like this, but definitely a weird one. And I could see why these types of movies aren't necessarily the most commercially successful.
Yeah, like Poor Things that he did was one that was really that I had a few issues with how dark he went with some of the stories because her brain was underdeveloped, but she's in a adult female body, but it got some really dark and disturbing stuff, and it feels a little more, it's more akin to it than it is like Kinds of Kindness and stuff like that. And it was just such a, like the first 75% of the movie felt like quite a bit different film than the way it ended. And even though the ending is connected, it just felt like the style and everything just kind of shifted and changed. And like it's set up and it works, but it's one of those weird endings where it's just like, okay, I get it, but did we actually need to go there? Was that the satisfying ending to this tale that we were waiting for? And in a way it wasn't, because I'd say Michelle is probably the most underdeveloped character in here, because throughout the entirety of the movie till the ending, you're just seeing her as a typical CEO type of character that only really cares about money and solving things through like using psychology and just kind of getting her own way. And then you get that ending where things are just completely flip on its head. And it's like, I don't know. Like I said, the only one I really connected to was Teddy, and then Don, which, Don played by Aiden Delbus was fantastic getting that. As you said, he's definitely got something mentally wrong with him. There's some development type of issue that happened with him as he's growing up, but there's such a sweetness and kindness to him, but also that gullibleness that whatever Teddy tells me, I'm going to believe. And Teddy hammers that over and over again. Like, you have to trust me. You have to believe me. You have to know that I'm doing the right thing and I'm doing what's right for us. And he's just, okay, and goes along with it. But you just feel so bad for him because he is getting drug along. Yeah. And then until everything just goes nuts. And like, that's where it kind of loses. Like in the first, even though it was weird and creepy, and I could have done without, the police officer Casey, who was played by Stavros, who has been in other Yorgos films as well. But it added a layer to Teddy, but it was one that if you didn't have that character in there as it was, you kind of almost didn't need that extra layer. That you've already got enough that he's gone through this stuff with his mom and he believes all this stuff and he's had a hard life. And then you add another harder element to that, but you didn't come out fully and say it or dive that deep into it. It just felt like it was almost an unneeded part of the film that they kind of threw in there. Like, I get, like, Yorgos tries to do so many different layered political, society, so many different commentaries on everything. But at some point, it comes a little too much.
Yeah, I agree. And I want to make a quick edit just to say that I've been saying Past Lives Before Things is the movie I was meaning the entire time, and Past Lives is a completely different movie. But it's got that same feel to it. I agree. I don't necessarily feel like Casey was a character that you really needed in this film. I get why he likes to put his people in his films and have things for them to do. But yeah, you just really resonate with Don, who is, you can see that morality in him, where even like as Teddy's telling him these crazy things, Teddy's trying to push back on it, but he doesn't have the confidence and the skills necessarily to really counter what Teddy's trying to tell him, because he does view Teddy as like the protector of him, and he does have that gullibility where it's just like, I don't think that's right, but I'm going to trust you because you've always taken care of me and you've always done the right. And it's just kind of I think they told that part of the story really, really well, because like, he's just that character that you're just like, God, I hope he makes it. I hope he does okay. And then unfortunately what happens to him. I'm not going to spoil how, but heartbreaking. Is the word I would choose to talk about Don in this film. Just absolutely heartbreaking, but such a great written character. Like you said, Teddy and Don really get a lot of really good focus in this film. Is
great chemistry between the
amazing
actors.
characters, amazing chemistry between these. And like I said, just Jesse Plemons is a phenomenal actor who goes on this incredibly crazy ride in this movie, as like doing most of the heavy lifting of anyone in this film. But man, I was really had a soft spot for Don in this film too, where you were just like, man, I feel for that poor kid, man, that just had a rough go of it, never really got to see things through, unfortunately. And like you just see them trying to pull, and you have Michelle really trying to get through because she sees that good in him too, and she's like, I know you're a good person, I know you do, I need you to help me get out of this. And it's just terrible. But yeah, man, this film was it's so all over the place that I'm still, like, even as we're talking about it, struggling like any type of rating I want to give it, because I'm still so indecisive on how I really feel about the movie overall as a whole, because it does take the hard right turn that it takes, or left turn, whichever way you want to turn your wheel on this. But
U-turn.
yeah, I'd almost prefer to U-turn, just to kind of backtrack a little bit. But yeah, like the ending of the film is just so weird, and I'm not gonna lie, a little off-putting. Like the last 2 or 3 minutes of the movie,
Very
like
polarizing
when it reaches that very decisive end point where it's just like, okay, we got here, this is what happens, and then we're just gonna show you the fallout of it.
So it just keeps going more and more outlandish.
It kept going, yeah.
Yeah, because there's one point, okay, I can get on board with this part. And then you get to a decision is made.
Yeah.
And then something else happens, and then you've got that long cut that I believe you're alluding to. Yeah. And it's just like, wait, what?
Like, why is this dragging on 2 minutes longer than it needs to? And it just really hammers you over the head with the point. Like, yeah, this happened, and you show how everyone is affected by it. I almost think they literally showed everyone who existed in the world at that point. It's what it felt like, at least. And I'm just like, because it just ends. It ends how almost every artistic type film ends, is just a real dramatic.
It's got to have that super artistic ending that you can get a different meaning out of it if you look at it from different eyes and ways. But
that type really just irks me for some reason. But overall, like, the more I'm thinking about it, like I really dug this movie for a lot of reasons. Hard ride aside. Like, even the crazy, wacky ending, you're like, okay, I get it. Like, I get what you're trying to say. But I still think there were really, really, really strong, solid performances in this that really help elevate what otherwise probably wouldn't be as good of a movie. But I think having the cast that was in this film and the story they told, they did a solid job of it. I'm going to give them their flowers a little bit here. I do think Jesse Plemons, like I said, come award season, is going to be in the mix for this, if I were to imagine. Emma Stone maybe as well, just because it seems like Emma Stone gets nominated for practically everything she stars in these days, which, for a good reason, phenomenal actress, not going to take that away from her, but Jesse Plemons for sure should be in consideration for his performance here.
Yeah, I don't think Emma Stone was bad in this film. She just didn't have a whole lot to do with it. Most of her emotions and things were pretty flat of playing, because she's trying to manipulate and get her way out through most of it. So you don't really connect with her. Like, she's a CEO, she gets kidnapped, they're thinking she's an alien, but you don't really get to connect with the character. Like, you get to see some of her emotions and crying when she's been kidnapped and stuff, but most of the scenes we get with her is manipulation, as she's trying to, she knows she's got two mentally disturbed individuals, and she's trying to figure out how she can, finagle her way to get released and out. And I'll jump back to another one of my a funny moment to me that I enjoyed. Like, there was a lot of humor in it, but when it got to the darkness, it got dark and it got heavy. But there's a point that she is able to convince Teddy of her stature as an alien and stuff, and she's actually able to go upstairs and have dinner with him. And Teddy's kind of like proud of himself, and he's like, I've prepared a meal that I feel is fitting to your stature and who you are. And it's spaghetti and meatballs. And he feels so proud of this meal that he's cooked and prepared, but it's spaghetti and meatballs. And it's just like so funny the way that he acts during that, because you also see some the wheels turning and other stuff, because they're still, she's trying to negotiate with him and figure out this story and ploy that she's doing with him. But he's just so proud of his spaghetti and meatball dinner.
Very, very funny scene as well. That made me laugh too, because he's just got this bravado in how he feels that people who have this certain status in society, how they carry themselves and how they and how they dine together, and
fine dining of spaghetti and meatballs.
Fanciest thing you can find is spaghetti and meatballs, which is very, very, very funny. But it was It was also a very funny scene. But yeah, man, like it leans heavily into like when it's funny, it's funny. Like it has its funny, but like you said, when it got dark, and it got dark quick. Like, very quick. And it was just like, oh man, they were not afraid to go there in some scenes, and it was just intense. Like it got intense quickly. And that's kind of what I feel like a little bit of that hard turn when it got towards like the latter third of the movie, if you want to say, like when you hit that apex point and it just jumps off from there and it got dark and it got concerning and it got crazy and just wild in like that last little bit of it, man. And it's definitely a movie that ended in a way that I was not expecting it to end. And it was just like, well, of course this happened. And of course, this is the decision they made, and they felt like they had no other choice. And it was just a wild ending to a very weird last 10, 15, 20 minutes of the film. That was just crazy how hard it pivoted to that ending of the story. And I'll talk to you offline about another really funny moment that's a direct spoiler to the ending of it that made me laugh a little bit. It's just how absurd it was, but definitely a weird ending for sure.
Yeah, so Bugonia was an odd, strange, weird film. It's part comedy, part dark comedy, part horror, part sci-fi. It was strange and weird. You kind of know going in with this from Yorgos, you're going to get something kind of different and kind of out there, but I do feel it went off the rails with the ending, that it just probably went farther than it had. And it might be something that appeals to a lot of people who are a fan of his and what he does. But for me, it kind of took me out. Like I was along for the ride, even though there was a lot of strange weirdness going on and stuff, but I was along for the ride. But when it got to those final moments of the film, it kind of took me out of it. So I'm going to knock it down. I think I'm going with a 6.5. I've been all over the place of what I want to do with this because Jesse Plemons was so fantastic. This is an Oscar-worthy performance by him, whether he wins or not, at least a nomination for him. He should get nominated for awards. He does most, if not all, the heavy lifting in this film. He was really fantastic. Emma Stone was good. Aiden was good. There was a lot of good performances, but that ending just really didn't sit well with me.
Yeah, I agree. The last 20 minutes of the film made it almost a completely different movie for me. Like it felt like it definitely took that hard pivot that we've been alluding to this entire review. I'm going to land on about a 6 myself just to knock it off because it goes so hard and pivots and subverts expectations a little bit. I don't like the mixing of the music like you mentioned a few times as well. I didn't elaborate on that too much, but there was definitely some odd choices in there and it gets a little too artistic at times for my taste, but character development, the really heavy lifting of the film is done in the character development and the performances of specifically Jesse Plemons, like you mentioned. Love Don as a character as well. Michelle doesn't get a ton to really work with, so you don't really get to see a lot of shining from Emma Stone in this film, but Jesse Plemons does a lot of the heavy lifting in this film, and he does such a phenomenal job at that really makes this a little bit more of a palatable movie than it wound up being overall as a whole. So I think a 6 is a fair place to land on it here, just to kind of take some of those heavier criticisms of things that we do and knock it down a little bit heavier, harder, and be a little harsh on it. But it's one that I'm glad I've seen, but it doesn't have a high replayability for me. If I even go back and visit it at all, this may just be a one and done for me. And in the way I like to give my ratings, that takes a harder hit on a film for me if I don't want to go back and revisit it again. And I don't know if I'll do that for this film.
Yeah, in some ways I want to rewatch it once just with knowing the ending and knowing everything, just to see if I feel any differently about it. But then the other half is like, I actually really don't have much want to go. Like I was I was from like 6 to 7.5 just because of I'd like to give points for good performances, and Jesse Plemons' performance was so good and layered and done so fantastically. But it was just kind of a messy. Like again, Yorgos's films have been kind of that way. They're very, you either love them or you hate them, and it's hard to be like right in the middle on them because they're artistic and they have so much different commentary that you have to dig through and look at to see exactly what he's referencing and what his opinion is, because he can kind of walk both sides of stuff, where you may show a negative light of something, but then turn right around and show a positive light of it, and then show like a muddy middle of it. And it was just kind of too all over the place. Like, it started strong enough, but yeah, it really was that ending that just kind of, for me, spiraled out of control.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with that. If you're comparing just his catalog, I liked Poor Thing a little more than I did this film. I don't know if you've seen that film.
I'd
yet.
put Poor Things kind of right around, probably around a 6 for me, just because there's some stuff, like I said, with having the child brain and a adult body that just disturbed me so much that I couldn't really have much enjoyment out of what was happening, because it was also so weirdly strange and out there with Mark Ruffalo's character and just what she was doing, that it just, there's some things that disturbed me that he went on, and maybe that was the point of it, but it was something I couldn't get over with the film to like really enjoy it.
Yeah, that's fair. But in me personally, I put it just a little bit ahead of it. But I think I would have given Poor Things like a 7 myself. Just like I said, not like the biggest fan necessarily, but I think this film is just a little bit better than that. But yeah, definitely a weird film this week, which you're kind of getting that from your guys' types of movies anyway. But definitely one that's right in there. If you love his films, you'll probably love it. Bugonia is in theaters now. Go check it out. Come to our Discord. Come to our YouTube comments. Let us know what you think about the film. We'd love to talk about this with you. If you think we're way off and missing the point here, please tell us. I'm sure some of the Yorgos fans out there are going to probably roast us for not giving this a 10 out of 10. But we'll see how that goes. But yeah, definitely a weird film this week for sure.
Yeah, and we didn't go that deep to the music. Just felt so off. Like, it didn't feel like it. There was very few situations I felt that the music actually matched what was going on. Like, it almost tried to give you a horror element, but then like nothing happened and nothing was really going on. Yeah. But it was just so loud and booming and crashing and over the top with it that it just It more took me out than like made me have feelings like that maybe he was trying to portray. But yeah, it was. I knew going in that these aren't my type. I can do artsy and I can do weird and strange, but there's certain combinations of all three there that just doesn't fully work for me. And if you enjoy it, I'm glad you've got some real enjoyment out of it. Everyone's going to have different opinions and different likes with stuff. This was just, as I thought kind of going in, that it was going to be a little like it. I was almost changing my tone a little bit through the first half, just because we were getting a decently deep kind of twisted story between of what was going on. And then it just it lost me in the end.
Yeah. It definitely derailed for me too. In the ending of the film, that definitely took it in a direction I wasn't expecting it to go as heavy into, that I think had they dialed it back just a little bit, I probably would have liked it a lot more. Like, it hadn't gone so outlandish at the end. It kind of held back just a little bit and been a little more subtle. I probably would have liked it, and I probably would have bumped it even higher. Like, because it was so borderline for me of like, I like this film, but I don't love it, to where I was like, I like it and thought it was okay, but it could have really would have been, I love this movie. Because it was working on its way getting there for me. Just the story they told, the way they pivoted in that film just really knocked it down for me. I mean, it was just, I don't know. It definitely skewed it the wrong way for me. And if they had just taken a little bit different, and I don't want to get into too specifics here because we could talk about that for hours, but I think if you dialed it back just a tad, probably would have scored significantly higher for me, I think.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I feel about almost all of his films. Like 60, maybe even up to 70% of it is a really solid film, but it's that last 30 to 40% that just goes out there and insane, and it loses me.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, you had me in most of it, but this and that just kind of took me out of it. And there was, like I said, with Poor Things, I just kind of was waiting for it to be over with after some of the things they did in there that personally to me, I just felt icky and strange about. And I'm like, oh, I'm going to finish it out. But like, I just didn't like this. And this one is just more like, I was enjoying myself all the way up until that last 20 minutes or so. And then it just went off the rails. And I'm like, what did I just watch? Like, what, like it's that hard thing because it fits, but it doesn't fit at all. And it does some stuff that just goes way too far out there that you're like, why did they do that? Like, they could have done the strange and the weird and odd twist and left it there, but it just kind of kept going with stuff like, okay, why are we doing this? Why did this happen? what was the point of everything that we just, watched and did? And yeah, it was just, fortunately, not something I ended up loving or liking that much. But again, I love Jesse Plemons. It's still crazy to me because when you go back and you look at Friday Night Lights and you look at all the actors and everything out of there, like you're trying to pick out, and it's not to be against him because he had kind of a smaller sidekick type of role in that he got to have some meat on his character, but you see all these other actors like, oh, they're going to go on and have the biggest careers, and he's had the biggest, best career out of all of them so far, other than like
easily,
some more of the adult actors who have just had, a fantastic career outwise. But for the teen young actors, he's easily had the best filmography, and he's shown up in just about everything.
So between he and Michael B. Jordan, for sure, were like the two really big breakout stars of that show. Because I mean, God, Jesse Plemons has been in some of the best TV shows of all time. He was in Breaking Bad. He was in just a litany of things, and he's just a phenomenal actor. But yeah, it was just one of those that I was really hoping would it in me, the way I like to equate it to like a sports analogy for this film. It's like you get this dominant performance from your starter who goes 7 innings of shutout ball, and then the bullpen comes in at the end of the game and blows the game. Like this is the way that movie felt for me, and it was unfortunate. It was like, man, you had me. This was a really good movie, and then you give up an extra base hit, and then you give up a walk, and then you give up a home run, and the game's over.
Well, speaking of that analogy, this World Series, like we're Reds fans, but we're baseball fans too. I don't know if you ended up watching much of the World Series, but that might have been one of the craziest World Series that I've watched. Insane. Going 7 games, heartbreaking for the Blue Jays and how that ended for them. Join in on the Dodgers ruining baseball if you want to go on that and stuff. But it was a wild and crazy series. Like it was a battle every single game. And Game 7 looked like one that the Blue Jays had very solid control, but it went off the rails. Like Game 7 was kind of
Bugonia. Very much like Bugonia, yeah. Like it just, you felt for the people in Toronto who were just so desperately wanted to see their Blue Jays win for the first time in 32 years. Trust me, as Reds fans who haven't seen a World Series in 35 years, we feel your pain. Like we just want to get back there too. But what a series! It was incredible. That was a lot of fun to watch. And I'm one that usually when my team's out of it, I don't pay as much attention to it. But this was one I wanted to really pay attention to for two teams that. One, it's like the Evil Empire team that is controversially paying $1 billion payroll versus a Blue Jays team that hasn't won in 30-something years, but are also kind of guilty of paying a ton of money to their players as well, just to kind of see these two payroll behemoths battle it out, and some really good players going back and forth. And it was a ton of fun. You just see how the Dodgers are, right, wrong, or indifferent, set up to be really good for a really long time, and it's very frustrating as a fan of a team who plays in the same league as they do to just see how good they are. And hopefully your team can be somewhat competitive, because notoriously our team played the Dodgers in the first round of the playoffs and just got absolutely steamrolled out of the playoffs right at the beginning of it. But, kudos to the Dodgers for winning the World Series, and, just excited to get back to baseball again in a few months after they get some well-deserved time off. But it's something I always enjoy watching.
And the Dodgers not only once, but twice knocked our Reds off this postseason. So they knocked them out of the postseason at the very beginning, but the Big Red Machine was the last National League team who went back-to-back before now the Dodgers went back-to-back. So they got 2 hits on our Reds there. But it's also a really strange story that I think it's the last 5 or 6 World Series. The winning team has had a Will Smith on their team.
I love that stat.
Now, Will Smith has been on 3 of the winnings, but the other 3 have been different Will Smiths. Yeah. But every winning team of the World Series has had or the Dodgers Will Smith on their team. It's like, okay, whoever if Will goes to another team, let him go to the Reds. They're winning the World Series because if you have a Will Smith, you win.
I'm starting the campaign now. In the offseason, trade for Will Smith. Let's get him on our team. We could use a really solid catcher. Let's get him on the team. I want him here. Put him in Cincinnati Reds red, and let's go win a World Series.
And when you go with that crazy story, he's the one who won it for him too. Yeah. His home run is what put him ahead.
The difference,
and he won the game. I mean, you got wasn't the MVP, but who's the MVP of that game because he put him ahead. He won it for him with that hit. And to compound that, yep, if you have a Will Smith on your team, you're winning the World Series, and he literally won it for him.
And then just watching them trot out multiple $100 million pitchers in Game 7 was just ridiculous. But
bring out all $1 billion of our payroll out here.
Here's all our money right here. Just fly, and good on him, man. Those guys tough it out, especially like Yamamoto, who won the MVP. Pitched Game 1, won Game 1. Pitched Game 6.
And then came in relief.
And then came in 2 innings of relief in Game 7. Just absolutely phenomenal performance. And a well-deserved MVP for him. He won all 3 games he pitched in.
Yep.
He was the decisive winning pitcher in all 3 games, which is an insane stat. And kudos to him.
There's definitely hate on the Dodgers for having a $1 billion payroll, whether Reds or under $100 million and stuff, but one team has the money and wants to spin and the other doesn't. You can't hate that Shohei is one of the greatest baseball players out there. Like the ridiculousness of the strikeout game he had at pitching along with 3 home runs in the game was just like, we haven't seen anything like that since Babe Ruth.
Yeah, just the best player of our generation by far, and he's a joy to watch, what you feel about him or not, but it's kind of unfair. You got this guy that can hit 50 home runs and then go on the mound and throw 100 miles an hour. It's kind of,
he's also a big dork.
It's kind of not fair. Yeah, and he's a huge nerd and just a really nice guy, and I just hate him so much. But
did you see one of the hits he got that he did his little dance toward the dugout and no one was paying attention to him, so he just stares him down and does it again until they do it, and then he just gets a little smile like, okay, like finally.
I love some recognition. God, I'm working hard over here. I was just like, oh, it's just so used to Shohei doing incredible things that nobody pays attention anymore. But yeah, phenomenal talent. Kudos to the Dodgers. It was a great World Series, and hopefully my Reds in some point in my lifetime can win a World Series again.
Because our Bengals definitely aren't giving us much want to watch anymore, but
yeah.
I did get to I did get to watch finally. I've been wanting for a while to start Lord of the Rings with my oldest.
Yeah.
Because she's gotten into D&D and she's getting older and stuff. I'm like, now's about the time you can really appreciate this masterpiece that is the Lord of the Rings trilogy. And we watched Fellowship last night and she loved it and it was fantastic. And now she's already planning like, all right, every weekend we got to watch one of them. Because I told her, you got The Hobbit. The Hobbit's not as good, but you know, you got the 3 Lord of the Rings. We could even dedicate a whole episode. I kind of want to go back and just talk about just how amazing and brilliant Lord of the Rings films were and just what they did right is so well with that film trilogy. Because even, you know, watching it, 23 years later? Fellowship came out in 2002, I believe.
Yeah.
It still
holds up.
It still looks so fantastic. I mean, there's some CG issues here at times when it's mainly when you're trying to put Elijah and the rest of the Hobbit cast of being Hobbit size in front of like, you know, Ian McKellen and everything. And it's like, that looked a little off and there's some cuts, but it's still just
so good.
Unbelievably good. And I was so glad that I could finally share like the Fellowship of the Ring with her. And I'm excited to see how she feels about the last 2 as well. She's not going to like Sheila is very well when we get to Return of the King, but it's going to be fun to go through those and watch that with her.
Can't tell you how happy that makes me that she's enjoying those movies. Just knowing how much you and I both love them, and now getting to kind of experience it through her eyes again is a really cool thing. I know you were sharing before we started filming about how like much she's getting enjoyment out of it, and she's starting to really like own a lot of the nerdy things that we both love and grew up loving too, and it's cool to see like younger generation like that kind of take these movies and get the same enjoyment out of them that we have. And I keep telling you, I told you before, but I really am excited to see what her reaction is when she sees like that Battle of Helm's Deep.
I'm waiting for her to see
incredible
that
when you watch The Two Towers. In my opinion, the best cinematic fight scene of all time, cinematic battle scene ever filmed. And obviously, if you go back in the archives and you see what my favorite movie of all time is, my opinion, still true, Return of the King is a perfect movie from start to finish. Two Towers is a very close second, but Return of the King is just an absolutely phenomenal performance. And I was telling you earlier, a guaranteed way to get me to cry is to watch the end of that Lord of the Rings film, and he tells the hobbits that, my friends, you kneel to no one. I was like, it just gets me every time. I'm just like, yes, I need a good cry. I'm going to put that on because I bawl like a baby for whatever reason at the end of that.
All 3 of them are just so brilliant. Like, I love each one of them for something different, because Fellowship has that, starting the lore and the world building, and you're getting to see more of the hobbits and, of course, Two Towers. You're starting to learn more about the men and getting Aragorn's story going more, but you're also getting the bigger battles and setting up. And Return of the King, of course, you're getting the more dramatics, and you're getting, the story of, those that have fallen, and then, how to go forward and how to end such a strenuous, hard journey. And it's all three are just so brilliant in different ways. And let us know. Come to our Discord or our comments if you want us to dedicate a whole episode just to beaming and sharing our love about Lord of the Rings and breaking down that trilogy. I'd be down for it.
Absolutely. You ain't got to twist my arm to do it. That's an easy yes all day, every day for me. We'll definitely make that happen at some point.
But I'm really excited for next week because we have two films that I've been really looking forward to. So we have Predator Badlands, which is taking the Predator character in a little bit different direction than we've had before. Because, we've had Predator show up with Alien, but all of his other solo stuff has been more, I guess, more on Earth, other than I think there was one other one that some of them blend together because some of the middle after two kind of just went okay. Sure. But this one, Dan Trachtenberg had done well with Prey. He had done well with the animated anthology and stuff as well. So I'm really looking forward to see how Badlands turns out. But we also got Guillermo del Toro's take on Frankenstein. Unfortunately, it never showed up anywhere close to us to watch it in theater, so we're going to have to watch it on Netflix with everybody else here. But he's the king of Gothic horror type of storytelling, and Pan's Labyrinth and everything else is so brilliant. I'm really looking forward to see what he does with Frankenstein.
Yeah, for sure. Guillermo del Toro is a fantastic director. Love most of his catalog as well. We're actually getting a day earlier screening of Predator Badlands than what we're normally used to. Our theater is running a earlier screening for that, so excited to dive into that and check that out because we love the Predator series here as well. But yeah, two really solid films that I'm excited to get our eyes on and get a chance to talk about next week.
Yeah, it should be a lot of fun. But that's all we have for you this week. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you on the next one.
To find all of the episodes of We'll Bring the Popcorn, go to our YouTube page, hit the like and subscription button so you're getting our episodes when they drop each and every Monday. If you're listening to us in the audio realm on any of the podcasting platforms that we're on, please don't forget to give us a 5-star review. It really helps elevate the profile of the show. And don't forget to go to willbringthepopcorn.com, where it has all of our archive videos, all of our social media information, as well as our merch store, so you continue to support the show in that way. We cannot thank you enough for your continued support.